Good afternoon, and thank you for coming. In this talk, we're going to show you how to build backends, cloud-based backends for your amazing Android applications. I'm Brad Abrams. I'm a product manager on the cloud team.
And I'm David Chandler, an Android developer advocate.
So David, haven't seen you in a while. How are you enjoying I/O?
It's great. It's great. Love to be here and meet up with geeks from all around the world. You know, the only thing that I think we need for I/O is we need a way to find geeks. Because there's lots of them around, but I don't know what everybody's interest is, and when people scatter out at the city at night.
You know, I think there's an app for that. You know, we've got a couple hours, we've got 39 minutes. We could probably build a cloud-connected Android app to solve just that problem.
I think you're right.
What would be on your wish list?
I'd probably want a map display, and it would show me where other geeks are. They have a way to register what they're interested in, Android, Chrome, Cloud, etc. And then maybe color code the markers by their interest and show them on a map.
Yeah, so David, you realize they shortened the session length this year, you know, so there's only like 40 minutes. I don't know if we're going to have time to build all that. But luckily, we launched a new member of the cloud platform family, the Mobile Backend Starter. And what this does is it's a no-code server solution to build a highly scalable cloud-based backend for your mobile applications. It's built on App Engine, so it was born to scale. We've got built-in Google authentication, built-in Google Cloud messaging, and a very cool continuous query feature that we'll show you about. The Mobile Backend Starter has two parts to it. The first part is on the server side with App Engine. We define a few cloud endpoints exposed over REST APIs to do generic data storage and access from there. And then it integrates with Google Cloud Messaging to send tickles down to the device. And then on the device side, we have a client library that's tailored to that back end, and then a place to put your own application. So with this, David, how do you think that would look for your app?
Well, we need to come up with a map display, so we can use the new Android Maps v2 API, and then use the Mobile Backend Starter to make our queries to the cloud and get the locations of geeks and report our own location up as well.
Sounds good. So should we get started?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's go. So our story begins here at the new Cloud Console. This is the new integrated experience for all the cloud features. So if you might have been used to using API Console in the past, and eventually this will also replace the App Engine Admin Console. But for now, both exist in parallel until we get this one all the way there. So on this site, and I invite you, if you're watching this online, to play along with us here. If you want to follow the steps that I'm saying, the Eng team would love it if you just really slammed our servers right now. You just go to cloud.google.com/console and create an app, and then click on this Get Started button. There's a few samples here to choose from. One of them is this new mobile backend. Now, for the sake of appeasing the demo gods, I have already deployed this a little earlier this morning. But the way this works is you just click on Deploy here, and notice I can download all the backend source code for this is available. I can download that and do whatever I want to with it. Or I can just deploy that. And this, without having to install any App Engine SDK, any tools on the client, it deploys a fully functional App Engine app. Everything we're going to show you in this demo is already in that app, and that's deployed for you. Once that deployment finishes, you can click on the Settings link there, and that will open up the admin experience for this mobile backend. It's actually part of the App Engine app that we've just deployed. And you can see here, we start locked down. So it is locked down by default. So, and the messaging is disabled by default. So it's locked down so no one can access your server. So what we want to do for development mode is flip this to open access. And that means everybody can access your endpoint. So the next step we need to do, we come back over here. We did step 1, step 2. Step 3 is to download an Android client. So we have all of the source code available for an Android client that works super well in the Android IDE or in Eclipse. So we're going to use Eclipse with ADT, the latest Android development tools installed. And I've actually already downloaded that and have the project here in Eclipse, so you can see kind of what you're getting. So there's the base files that handle accessing the server, and then there's a sample that comes with it with this guestbook sample, which we'll take a look at. And then the main configuration place to look at is this const.java file. And we'll look at this a little bit over the course of the talk, but there is a few constants here that you fill in to be able to wire these things together. So what we need to do is, wire up our client to our server just so they can talk. So if you're familiar with App Engine, it has a URL format that matches the project ID that we gave it, and then we just give the project ID in the const file here. So I've actually already got that up and running, so I've already deployed that. So if we just switch over to the camera, which is here. So here we have, this is the guestbook app. It's what comes by default with the project. And we can just send a message here, hi, IO, and I click send. When I click send, what it's going to do is send a REST request up to the server. The server will store that data in App Engine's NoSQL data store, and then we'll get an ACK back on the client here. And just to show that, let me switch back. No, I am 4. I'm 4. Sorry about that. OK, we'll just switch back here, and let me show you in the new Cloud Console. So if we switch up here, you can see our beautiful new Cloud Data Store Explorer. And we click on Queries. And we can see that entity that we let. Notice there's that guestbook entity. You can create your own entities, and they can have any fields that you want them to have. And you can see here's our guestbook entity, and there's the hi.io. So in about 5 minutes, we've already built a cloud-connected Android app. But I think there's more we can do. I think for the Geek Serendipity app David's going to build, he's going to want more than just storing the state in the cloud. He's going to want to be sitting at a coffee shop and just see geeks pop in on his mobile device without having to refresh the application.
In case I can't recognize them when they walk in with their Google Glass.
Right, exactly. So there's a couple of approaches to this. This is not the right slide. There's a couple of approaches to this. And we don't have the right. OK, anyway, yes. So there's a couple approaches to this. One would be polling. We could, from the client of the app, we could every few minutes, we could go up to the server and say, is anybody new? Is anything new? And get the results back there. But that would be bad. That would be expensive in battery life, expensive in network resources, and it would use a lot of server resources. So rather than that, we're going to use Google Cloud Messaging. It's the same technology that Google uses to power Gmail on Android or Google Chat. There's a persisted connection that's maintained between Google's data centers and all the phones that have those Google Experience apps on them. And your code, your applications, can use that same channel to be able to send notifications. So we're going to use that. So there's really 2 steps to doing that. The first step is we need to know who is sending the notifications. And in our case, it's going to be the mobile backend starter that we just deployed is going to send those notifications. So the way we do that is let's come back to our app here and click on APIs. And you can see I've already ahead of time turned on the Google Cloud Messaging for Android. So you have to enable this API. And then we go into the mobile backend starter, and we need to give it the API key. So this is where we're going to use that to pass along to say, here's who's sending the push notification. So in order to do that, in order to get that key, we'll go into the new Cloud Console, and we'll register a new application. And we'll just call this our mobile backend, and it's just a generic web app. And we'll register it. And we'll actually use this a couple of times when we do auth as well. But for this time, all it asks for is that server key. So we just grab that server key and put it in here. And we've done everything we need to enable our server side for push notification. The last bit is just to put the project ID in that const.java file. Once we've done that and deploy, Then we get the same guestbook application, but now if David were to send us some messages, David's got that same app running over there. Oh, and we need to switch to it so you can see it. So what David's going to do is he's going to find the app, and then he's going to start sending us messages. When he sends a message from his phone, that's going to do a REST request up to the server. We're going to store that data in data store. And then there's a technology called perspective search that is looking at changes in the data store. And when it sees a change, it's going to send a notification over to Google Cloud Messaging. Google Cloud Messaging will then find the subscribers and send a message down to my phone. And you can see David's using all his creativity at this point to come up with very creative things. And you can see sort of hands-free, we're getting notifications. So just a few minutes in, and we've already got a pretty functional application with just setting a few variables there. So at this point, David, I think we're probably ready for you to start putting some map goodness on here.
Okay, excellent. So I've started a project based on the cloud backend that Brad has on his machine, and I've put a map activity in it using the new Maps API v2. So there's just a map fragment and a very simple activity, which I'll show you here. And you have to paste your API key into your Android manifest as well. Don't forget that if you're setting up maps. Let me zoom in on this code a little bit so you can see a little bit about it. We just have a setup method where we obtain a reference to the map. And then we enable our location, which makes the location services work. So that gives you the locator button in the upper right in the app. And that's really about all there is to it for getting the basic map up. So what we want to do is, as soon as we launch the app with the map, we want to find our location. And we're going to use the integrated Google location services that work with the Maps v2. And then we want to do something whenever it comes back and notifies us it has a good location for us. So there is a listener called onMyLocationChange listener that we can set. And that will allow us to act on that information. So we'll set that. Set onMyLocationChange listener. And I'm going to just let this class implement it. Let me blow this up again a little bit. So we're getting an error there because we need to let this class implement that method. So we'll go ahead and add that. And then, oops, scroll back. We need to add the actual method. So I've got a little code here I'm going to paste in from the snippet on my location changed handler. And we'll fix the imports here. Zoom back in on it, and you can see it's doing send my location. And then we've got a little code further down to do that. And it's not implemented yet, so let's go ahead and implement this method as well. So to send our location to the server, we're going to use the cloud backend sample code that's here. And it's really pretty straightforward. We just create a generic entity. That's the way the mobile backend starter works, is it gives you generic CRUD services that you can send and receive these generic cloud entities. So we're just creating a new cloud entity, and we're making it of kind geek. This works really well with the App Engine data store because it is schemaless. So you can create any number of kinds and properties on the fly. That makes it actually very easy for us to write this kind of application right now. So we'll put in a few things. Our interest is cloud. Our location is what we just got from the location change handler. And then we call getCloudBackend.update. And this is one of the built-in methods that's available to us as part of the mobile backend starter. And because in Android everything should be asynchronous, we pass it a callback handler that will get called when the request completes. And when the request completes, then we draw a marker on the map. Okay, the reason getCloudBackend is in red is because I need to let this activity extend cloud backend activity now instead of fragment activity. So there we go. Now all those features are available to me. You can look here and see that method should be OK. So let's take this and run it on the phone. It'll take just a second here. Let me get the phone plugged in. Okay, and a little trick I learned just this morning, actually, is that if you want to install an app on your phone but not run it yet, which I'm going to do because of the Ethernet situation here, you can just change your run configuration and tell it to do nothing on launch. And that will build and install the app on the phone, but it won't actually launch the activity yet. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. Run as Android application. See, it's building. We'll wait for it to come over here, and then we'll go plug the phone into the Ethernet and show the map on the camera. Okay, looks like it's already there. Grab this.
Not that we're paranoid about the network.
Yeah. These Galaxy Nexus phones have the capability to do USB to Ethernet, which works very well for us here. So here is our app. Comes up with our basic map display. We have location services available. And then when we touch that, we should see that it will locate us.
You should see.
Very interesting. It doesn't seem to be able to find a location for us. Let's see if we can scroll the map over and zoom in a little bit. Well, awesome. Something new every demo.
Awesome.
Okay.
So David's going to debug that.
Yeah. I think maybe not.
Okay.
I think we'll go to the next stage.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so David's going to debug that while I go. So David is now theoretically sending our location up to the server.
Yes.
Yeah, so David's now sending our location up to the server. And I have the Digerati following me all the time. And I think, with our server being open and my location being sent up there, that's sort of a bad combination. So what we want to do is lock down our server. We're going to lock it down so only our Android client can call our server. So just because there's REST endpoints out there doesn't mean we want everybody else to call them. We only want our client app to call those endpoints. So now there's a number of options for how to go do this. Some people have put secrets in their Android app, some token that they generate that's in their app, and they send that up on each request. But that has an obvious problem because how many of you have ever unzipped an APK before? Right. And so if you can do it, a lot of people could probably do that. And so those secrets are discoverable. So rather than using some secret that we put into the APK, we're going to use a mechanism that's built right into the Android OS. And that's all Android apps are signed. There's a digital signature that's cryptographically strong. And we're going to use that signature. That signature is actually what the Google Play Store uses when it is updating apps, when it's finding which app to update. It uses that signature to ensure that you're the same publisher. So what we're going to do is use that signature on the client, and we're going to give that a token generated from that signature up to the server, and that will be sure that requests only come from our app. So to do that, what we'll do is come back over to the mobile backend settings page, and then it's asking for an Android client ID that I've already filled in. So the way you get that Android client ID is back in the Cloud Console, you register a new app. So you click on Register App. I've called it Android Client. And then you just give it the package name and the SHA-1 fingerprint. The SHA-1 fingerprint is the interesting one to get. That is, you run the key tool command over your debug.keystore file if you're in debug mode. And that keystore file is generated for you automatically by the Android ADT. And it's usually in your root directory in .android. So anyway, we generate that. And then once we have that, we have a client ID that's all wired up. So we just take that client ID and hand it to the mobile backend. So that handles the first step. The second step of this is if you noticed, we're actually using OAuth to do this security. And OAuth is tried and true technology, but some of you may associate OAuth with the OAuth consent dialog that you may have seen before, like when you're trying to access, say, Google Plus data or Google Docs on behalf of somebody. They'll get a prompt that says, do you want to allow this app to access your Google Docs data? That's an OAuth consent screen. And that makes sense in that scenario, but in our scenario, we have the Geek Serendipity app on the client accessing the Geek Serendipity backend. That's not one where, I mean, the OAuth consent screen would be sort of silly. Do you want the front end of this app to be able to talk to its own backend? And that's not a choice that we think is meaningful to users. And so what we do is we can suppress that screen so it doesn't get seen if we know the publisher is the same on the client and server side of the app. If we know it's your back end and your front end, you don't need to see that screen. So the way we prove that it's your back end and your front end is we use this web client ID. And so you get the web client ID. This is that, this is the mobile backend that we created earlier for getting the Google Cloud messaging to work. And before we used the server key, and now we're going to use the OAuth client ID. So we just grab this OAuth client ID, and you put it in the second field here for web client ID. And then you also put it in your Android app. So it needs to be in both. Now, this is not a secret. Somebody could unpack your APK and get that, and they still couldn't access your back end. It just proves that you're the same user on the front end and the back end. OK, and then there's one more step. So the last thing is very easy, and that is that because we're using Google authentication in here, we have the same notion of who a user is on the client and the server. That's built into the App Engine framework, and it's built into Android. So it's a very seamless experience. So I've already loaded that up on this phone, and let's switch over. So I loaded this app just a minute ago onto this phone, and you can see now when I run the app, it's giving me a chance to log in. And all the, most Android phones have Google IDs associated with them. So I'll just log in with this one. And now what's happened is it's gone out and validated who I am. Okay. What's the secret?
The secret is, in order to know your location, it needs one of two pieces of information, either GPS or Wi-Fi. We have Wi-Fi off because we had it hardwired.
Awesome.
But now we have Wi-Fi on. Give it a whirl.
Oh, and look, David figured it out. Fantastic. So now it knows who I am and where I am. And we're looking for an acknowledgement that it knows who I am. And we can switch over and see the data store. Is it going to work? OK.
I think so.
Give it one more second. Let's switch over and see. I'll just run this. It's not there.
Let's try closing the app.
So now turn off Wi-Fi. We're done with, we know where we are. Now we can use the internet. And we can use the hardwire.
No, I don't think so. I think we want to close the app, and then come back in.
OK.
Sorry.
Just one demo glitch.
Yeah.
We really need the Ethernet to be able to tell us where we are. So what we've done so far is we've built a backend on App Engine. Just click once to deploy that backend. And we've stored our state there. We've shown push notification, the easiest GCM wire-up I think you've ever seen. And we've showed using a map and logging in.
Sorry, I did something wrong.
OK.
All right, move
Great.
on to the next stage.
And so that will now store your data up on the server. So you want to switch to the next one?
Yes.
OK.
OK, so now that we are sending our location to the server,
sorry. Okay.
We'll go ahead and proceed with the next stage, which is we want to find out where all the other geeks are. So we want to query the server. And if you could put up the slide, the keynote slide.
That.
OK. I'll tell you about the continuous query capability that we're going to use to do that. So this is a feature of the mobile backend starter project that uses several App Engine features as well. There's a API in preview called prospective search, and what that does is anytime data comes in that matches the parameters of your query, then App Engine will notify your app on the server side that some matching data has been found. So we're going to use that to our advantage here. Anytime a new location update gets posted, then our app will get notified on the server side. And the mobile backend starter project takes that further and will send a GCM message to our app running on the phone as well. So the flow looks like this. In step 1, a new location update comes from the phone, gets put in the server. In step 2, the App Engine prospective search API notifies the server side part of our mobile backend starter app. That sends a GCM message, Google Cloud Messaging, to the client in step 3. Then in step 4, we re-query to get the latest data from the server. And then finally, step 5, we draw the markers on the map with that most recent data. So I'm going to go now write the code that actually does this in our app. So we'll again take a look into our map activity. And the first thing we want to do is write a query. I'm just going to stroll down a little bit here. That will go out and get the geek locations. So let me paste in some code here, query geeks, and show you what that looks like. Now, all the capability that I just described on that slide is called continuous queries, is what we're calling it right now in this project. And so the first part of our query is to write a handler that will receive the results. So we have an onComplete handler, and we're just going to draw markers. Simple enough. Then to actually register the query, we call getCloudBackend.clearAllSubscription. Now, the notion of a continuous query, you can subscribe to queries on the server. So we want to clear any existing subscriptions and then set up a new one. So we say new cloud query for kind geek. We're just going to get the top 50 geeks sorted in order of the most recent location updates. And we're going to make the scope future and past. So again, this is a feature of the mobile backend starter that lets you say, I want to be notified of future matches to this query as well as present. And if you think about the amount of code that you would have to write to do that all manually, setting up GCM, keeping track of this data is actually a very nice convenience. And then we actually register this query by calling getCloudBackend.list, and we pass it our query and our handler. So the code that runs up here in lines 72 and 73, the onComplete handler, will get invoked anytime there's a new location update that gets sent to the server. Then all the clients who are subscribed to that query will get notified, so they can update their map displays as well. So we've made a query method. Now we actually need to call this. And we only want to call this query. Now that we have authentication turned on, it's going to enforce that at the server side. So we only want to call it if we're already authenticated. So there's another method that's useful to do that in our project called onPostCreate. We can inherit this from the mobile backend or cloud backend activity. And here is where we're going to call our query geeks method to register our query. So only gets called after we're authenticated. And then lastly, I just want to remove my draw marker method because now in our onComplete handler, we're drawing all the markers. So that's the final code for that. Let me go ahead and put it on the phone.
You have a suggestion?
Right, we'll do run as Android app again to get it here. Then once it appears, I will cross my fingers, walk over there, stick it under the camera. Wi-Fi is still on this one. You'll need Wi-Fi on for the second part of the demo as well. Okay, so here we go. Going to give it a whirl here. We'll switch back to the camera view. And we'll try the app. Authentication's enabled now, so I have to log in. The map should be coming up. You know what I didn't do? I didn't plug in the Ethernet, but Wi-Fi appears to be working. Yay. And we'll locate. Okay, and there is a marker. Actually, 2 markers, which is exciting. Have you already launched the app?
No.
Okay. Well.
You may see one more. Let's see.
In the advanced section of this presentation, we will discuss how to clone ourselves, or at least our Android devices. Yeah, I saw it appear.
Did you see the third one?
Yes, I saw the third one appear as Brad did the demo. You remember there were 2, right? Nothing up my sleeve. All right. A third marker appeared. That is the continuous query in action when he ran the app. Thank you very much.
So do you want to do that slide?
Yes, let me get that up here. Okay, I'll switch back to mine. I wanted to say a little bit more about a couple of things. First, the Mobile Backend Starter project is brought to you by a team at Google called the Cloud Solutions team, and I wanted to acknowledge the engineers there. We call him Greg, because no one can pronounce his name properly. Kaz Sato and Jenny Lowe. The Cloud Solutions team is involved with helping App Engine customers figure out the optimum technical solutions to run, or cloud customers more generally. And they also publish best practices white papers. You can find them at cloud.google.com under the solutions section. I wanted to mention a little bit more about async tasks as well, because part of the magic that the cloud backend is, the mobile backend starter is doing for you is to run off the UI thread in Android is behind the scenes, that cloud backend activity is actually creating a new thread for the network requests. But that's all, you're insulated from that, you don't have to worry about it. Even better would be to use services on the Android platform, and that's something that we're looking at extending that project to do.
Okay, thank you. So I think now we have a very full-featured app, and it's cloud connected. I think the mobile backend starter has served us really well. We haven't had to do any server code yet. But you know, I'm a server guy, and I was talking earlier, I think it's a few App Engine. Who's sort of an App Engine guy here? Are you guys missing writing code on the server? I know I am, so I constructed a reason to have to write some code on the server. So both David and I are a little bit data geeks. Being at Google, we love processing lots of data. And so we want to log everything about the user experience on this app. How do people use, how do they pan, what do they do on the app, so that we can do data processing on it and learn how to make the app better. But the mobile backend doesn't have a logging mechanism, doesn't have any way to store stuff in logs yet, although they'll probably add it right after this talk. But for now, anyway, it's an excuse to write some server code. So we're going to write our own custom cloud endpoint that is part of this backend starter, and then we're going to call that endpoint from a client library in the client. So let me show you how this goes. So what I've done is I've gone out to GitHub, and I've downloaded the source code for the mobile backend starter. As we've said, everything in this thing, the source code's available. So if you don't like something Greg did, you can go and change that. And so what I'm going to do, I've got that, and I'm just going to drag in an endpoint I wrote earlier. And this is the world's simplest cloud endpoint. So it's got the @API attribute that indicates to App Engine that we're going to expose this as a REST API. And then right here, we're seeing where we're defining what its name will be in the client library and what the REST interface should be. And then it's very simple. We just call log.info and put that in the App Engine logs. So I've already deployed this a little earlier this morning. And what's very cool about cloud endpoints is that there's this neat URL. If you go to _AH API Explorer, then you can actually view the API Explorer for your interface. So what we saw earlier was the mobile backend, and now I just added a new one called Cloud Logging API. And that's got the same name I gave it in the source code. And now if I hi from the web app, then this goes out and it calls my interface. And if I look at the App Engine logs for this, you can see there's that log, hi from the web. So very nice experience there. Now what we want to do is call this from our client app. So in order to do that, what I need to do is generate a client library. So I'm just going to right-click on this and find the Generate Cloud Endpoints Client Library feature. And this is going to go out, it's going to take the discovery document, the description of that interface, go out to the web, to a service we provide that will generate a strongly typed Android-optimized client library for our service. And then download it and put it right here in this project. There it is, client logging.
That functionality, by the way, is provided by the Google plugin for Eclipse.
That's right. And then we just need to copy it over. Very simple. I'm just going to drag this over. And now we need to add it to our build path. So we're going to right-click on this and use this source folder. So now this will be part of the build. And then I just have a very simple bit of source code to add to the client to actually do the calls. And let me show you what this looks like. So this is my cloud log function. It's very simple. In the constructor, we take the unique ID of the Android app that we're using, so we can tell in the logs what's happening where. And then in a thread, I am going and doing the asynchronous call up to the server, and that's right here, service.logs.log, passing that message and doing execute. In just a couple more, if we had a couple more minutes, I would wire this up into the UI, but it's very simple. You just call this log method, and we do those, that request each time up to the server. You might want to do batching, but for the demo to be snappy, I decided not to. So there's nothing really to see on here, but I have this on the phone, and I'm just going to pan around a little bit, generate some log data, hopefully, if the connection's working. Then if I come back to my logs, I should see new logs, and we do, in fact, see logs from client, right, with a unique ID, and this is, for example, on my location changed. So we've shown you how to add custom logging to the custom endpoints to your mobile backend starter. So with that, I think we're pretty much done. Let's wrap up.
All right, everything that we've done today is available. The mobile backend starter, of course, you can get to cloud.google.com, and the Cloud Console, as Brad showed earlier. The demo code is going to be posted soon as well. And we also created a little more refined version of the app called Geek Serendipity, which you can download in the Play Store. Let me drop that on the camera real quick here, just so you can see it in operation. We sent it out the other day and allowed a few people to get in on it. So you can see it'll just put markers on the map for you showing different types of geeks in the area. So we hope you enjoy using the mobile backend starter, and we have 1.5 minutes left. If there's a quick question, we can take that. Yes, right here. Do you need to inherit from the cloud backend activity? Currently, yes. Yes. Yes, we're looking at moving it into a fragment or otherwise abstracting that capability so that you don't have to extend. Yes, behind you. Okay, yeah, please step to the microphone. Thank you. What would be the difference between using Google Cloud Messaging, WebSockets, or other APIs? Or Channel API, okay. Google Cloud Messaging is really optimized for phone use because it'll send the updates over the air. It's written in such a way to be battery efficient. And it is a true push mechanism. Some of those others maintain long-running connections. I'm not sure they're designed as much for Android specifically. So I think Google Cloud Messaging would be the most battery efficient.
I think we're out of time, so thank you very much. We
appreciate it.
Thank you.